men plus the keeper around the batsman.
There we go. Fleming took the last one. Merv Hughes before him.
That's a hat-trick to Shane Warne, a great moment in his career. What a catch by David Booth. You won't see many better catches than forward short leg than that one. The Aussies are all around, and have a look at that.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to round 4 edition of BBL SuperCoach Tragics. On the podcast tonight, we have Glen, we have Daniel, and we have a special guest, Tim Mitchell. Tim, we'll go to you first, obviously, and if you can just give the viewers a bit of a rundown on what you do and where we can find you and all that sort of stuff like that, and how you're going, obviously, so far.
Yeah, Roscoe, thanks for having me on. Good to come on for a chat, and Merry Christmas to yourselves and all the listeners as well. Team is going okay this year. Like, I haven't really hit a captain so far, unfortunately, which has been sort of a difference between, I don't know, like average rounds and really good rounds. Like if you got Jai Richardson in round 2, you're flying. If you got Michael Neser or Mark Steckety last round, you're flying again. Unfortunately, I was on James Basley and then had to throw a sort of flyer at Rashid Khan, which didn't work last night either. So that was the difference between sort of scoring 1,100 and scoring 900 as I did. So sitting just outside the top sort of 1,500 at the moment, and hopefully can push on and in the next couple of rounds get myself back up into the top 1,000. For anyone that happens to want to follow me, I'm sort of one of the team, I guess, for the official sort of KFC Supercoach team in at News Corp, and probably the easiest way to get me is just Tim_Mitchell. My surname's spelled without a T, MICHELL. On Twitter, you can normally get me. I'm pretty active on there, so that's a nice, easy way to find me and ask any Supercoach questions or just have a bit of banter and tell me how bad my team is, as most people tend to, Ross.
Yeah, all right, that's good. All right, thanks for that. So Dan, how about yourself? How did you go this week?
Next. No, I did terrible, mate. I think you guys are all aware I was pretty much bedridden all week, so I was I had a horrible week. I made choices that didn't really go too well for me. Like I was telling Glenn before we started that I was initially bringing Steckety and Dooley in, they were 2 of my trades, and I backed out and decided to go an extra double gamer, and I decided to go Baisley instead of Steckety, and then brought in Swepson as well. So as you guys were aware, I would have been much better off going Steckety and Dooley, and also tucked the vice captaincy onto Baisley as well, which didn't help considering that I fell asleep before the last game, stuck in bed, and did not change it to Matt Short, which my intention was to do. So I got the really poor captaincy there. In saying that, I've had way worse starts in a year than I have this year. Normally I'm around the 10,000 mark, and I'm much better at bringing back and assessing the season as it goes along. But I'm still ranked around the 3,500K mark there. So I definitely have a much better head start than I normally would at the start of every other year. So I'm looking forward to coming back and scaring a couple of top rankers at the end of the season.
You know what? That's not the worst position to be in. I think the bloke who got the highest score last week was sitting somewhere like 3,000 or 4,000 or something ridiculous, and then pulled out 1,650 and moved up to like 250 or 300. So the potential's there. In this round, having been no double, there is a good chance to be. This is the round to catch up if you can pick the right captaincy options. You can make up plenty of ground for sure.
That's the key, mate. I think picking the right captaincy option. Haven't done that once yet, so it's about time I started.
And Glenn, how are you going, mate? How was your week?
Yeah, good. Ross, I had an average week. I mean, 50-50 decisions I'm getting wrong. I had Steckety as one of my buys and Neser, and I ended up swapping it to Renshaw Neser. And I got 915. I'm ranked 400, so I went down 190K from what I was. 190, sorry, not 190K. The rest of it's been a pretty good week, mate.
Yeah. So I got 1,051, which moved me up 1,448 places to 1,120 after my stinker last week that I got. Because you know what happens when you go get on the drink and you forget to trade. So these things happen, but I'm pretty happy with that. But I did have Inglis on the pine. I also had Shadab Khan on the pine because I took him out thinking that game wasn't going to go ahead. Made a bad trade in bringing in Nathan Coulter-Nile, which cost me big time as well. So, but yeah, anyway, I'm pretty happy with that. All right, we'll move on. So this round, obviously, as we discussed, we've got no double games this week. So obviously, this will be the round that we want to start targeting your round 5 double plays, which is the Renegades and the Sixers. Um, go to you first, Glenn. Who do you think are the best options to be looking at to bring in this week? Obviously taking in mind break evens and all that sort of stuff too.
Yeah, so I think Philipppe's come down, although you could probably wait another week on Philippe and even get him cheaper. But I think Philippe would be a target. Other bats that I'd look at would be Marsh, although Marsh I'm a bit nervy on with his injury history. And Finch I don't mind. And I think Madison's a bit expensive. And but I think there's a lot of good offers at bowling with Hussain, Naveed, Richardson, Abbott, Majib. I think Majib points per dollar makes more sense. If you can't afford to get Hussain out there, people, and you're thinking, I can't put that sort of money together, Majib will do the same job for you for half the price. So that would be my tip, Majib.
All right. What about you, Dan? Who you really think's the best ones to target this week for those two teams?
Yeah, I'll echo. I was talking to Glen before we started as well, and I'll echo Hussain and Mujib. I really like those two. I've got both of them. I'm bringing both in myself this week. Also with their low break evens, I think Hussain's got a 0 break even, and Mujib's at 26, which is definitely achievable for him. Philippe I like as well, just due to the fact that his break even isn't like crazy. It's 51. However, he does tend to score quite well at the SCG. So this is why I'm really liking him this week. That's why I brought him in earlier. But like, there's some. If you're in a pot option there, I know it's expensive. I think Glenn touched on it. He's quite expensive, and that's Madison. It's very expensive, but if that's the only reason he's a pod, he could definitely be a good pod for you.
Can I just add something I meant to say? So that Rogers is another one that I think that people should be taking a look at, and the other one is at points per dollar. I think Vince. So if you're looking for someone to trade down, so you've got a bit enough money to go up, Vince could be that option as well.
Yeah. All right. What about you, Tim? Who you think the best ones to jump on this week?
Well, I'm really tempted because I think most people will wait a week. So there's a temptation for me to just go and get Sean Abbott a week early. I know he's still going to drop about another 5 or 10K, but like realistically, what's that? Like that's nothing in our sort of KFC Supercoach budgets. Like you can make that up pretty quickly with the 3 trades most weeks. So there's definitely a part of me that's tempted to jump on Sean Abbott. I think I'll definitely get his partner in crime, Hayden Kerr, this week because he's been batting really well as bowling at the death for the Sixers. So he's got a really nice role and a lowish break even as well. Like his price went up just over 10K after his efforts in round 3. So definitely getting Kerr as one of my 3 or sort of potentially 4 trades this round as well. And I totally get what you guys are saying about Hussain. The only thing that is leading towards me, like I hate paying 183K when everyone else or a lot of people jumped on and did really well to get him for sort of 105K or even 125K after his first price rise. But he's now owned by more than 50% of teams in the top 5% of coaches. So, and that number's only going to rise this round as well. So I would think that if you're in the top 5K, and you don't have Akil Hussain, like he's the top most owned Renegade or Sixer, and he's only going to get more popular going into that round 5 double. So it's pretty risky not having him because if he goes off again, just about half the coaches in the top 5% are going to get a big advantage on those who don't have him. So probably going to try and find a way to squeeze him in as much as I'm reluctant to sort of pay close to 200,000 for a guy that I still don't know about his batting as good as he was in the last round, and I think he's probably going to rely mostly on his bowling for points, but he's been absolutely super so far for the Renegades and a big reason that they're undefeated so far.
Yeah, well, I was one of those lucky ones who jumped on Hussain at the start, so I got him nice and cheap, so I'm pretty happy with that.
What do you boys, just Roscoe, what do you boys think? Because I'm trying to find, and I think most people will be in that boat where they're either tossing up between like a non-scoring cheapie, which we're going to need in sort of round 6 and 7 when there's no doubles, and even round 4 this round as well, or going early and taking a punt on Will Sutherland from the Renegades. He's going to get his role's not good now, but as soon as Andre Russell leaves, his role's going to improve. Like he's going to bowl more. He potentially moves up even one spot in the batting order as well. And look, I know that's risky because his scoring's never been great, and we've been waiting for him to break out for years in the BBL. But there's part of me that thinks now he's gone. He's almost 42K, so he's almost as cheap as you get, and you can loop him in round 5. So I'm almost tempted to sort of have a bit of a risky pod pick and get Sutherland in and see whether he's going to be the real beneficiary of Russell leaving after this round.
If you're buying him as an NPR, I like it. I actually think that's some of the thinking that I like is where you're buying ahead a player that's going to be round 5 you can use as a loop, but then it enables you to later on when Russ goes to still have that playing player who I think his role will improve. I actually like that trade. I think it's a good trade.
I'm a bit hesitant on that just for the reason being that I don't know if you'll move up the order because you've got to remember Sean Marsh is going to come into the side, and so is Martin Guptill, and obviously Guptill will come in for Russell. I can see Sutherland bowling more overs, but I can't see him moving up the batting order with that though. That's the only thing. He may once Hussain goes as well. He may move, but that's obviously after the double. But for me, if I'm going to get someone who's going to be helpful for the loop, I'll be getting Conley just because he's a bat and a bowl as well, and he's dirt cheap as well. And plays a lot of later games in the round, so he'll be more useful for the bench looping and everything as well.
Another perspective on that too is that opening 4 from the Renegades is a pretty solid opening 4. Guptill, Madison, Marsh, and Finch. How many balls does that leave for Sutherland? Even if he does come in at 5th. So there's another way to look at it because I feel like those 4 between them could tie up a lot of balls.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point that you got, mate. And I think Guptill's going to be a big one because Sam Harper's been opening, but I suspect that he's going to probably drop to like number 5 or number 6 once they get their sort of full order together. So he's one that I liked him at the start of the season. I thought he had a good role, but I wouldn't be jumping on him now. And like even at the Sixers, who knows what they're going to do because we all thought Naveed was like an absolute lock to play in the double and he's bowling really well. And then he gets dropped last round and then Todd Murphy comes in and bowls well. So I think that's thrown a spanner in the works as well for a few teams that were sort of banking on having him for the double.
I think it's important that we just have a quick discussion around the Sixers bowling attack in particular for those who are unsure on what bowlers to go for, because obviously, depending on where they play, is going to make the difference on who's going to be picked in the team. So between Chris Jordan, Naveen, Todd Murphy, Jackson Bird, and Sock, they're all going to basically play that rotating sort of role. So for me, if you're looking at any of those players, I would not be touching any of them just for that reason. Do you guys agree on that, Glenn?
Well, so Kerr, Abbott, Dwarshuis and Jordan will all bowl, right? So that leaves one spot between Sock, Najeeb and Bird or Murphy. So, what I always say is go for the players who you know their role is. And we know what the role will be of Kerr, Dwarshuis and Abbott at the very least. And I'd say Jordan as well. So I'd be looking at that. And then if you're going to buy one of those at-risk players, buy them on the round. So buy them round 5 when they've been named. So that way you're not going to buy ahead. Because, a lot of people, I kept telling people not to do it. We're buying players, I can't even think, Hatzaglu and Bancroft and all them sort of players. And I kept saying, like, the best rule that I always do is the ones who I know their role, they're the ones I buy forward. And then the ones who are risky, I buy them on that particular round. Then that way, at least you know their role.
Yeah. Dan, would you be buying any of those players that I mentioned, or are you avoiding for that reason?
I wouldn't even buy them at the start of round 5 because they're not guaranteed to play the 2 games anyway. They could play that first game. Obviously, we can wait for that, but they can't play that. You're not going to guarantee they're going to play the second game. You might have Naveed play 1 game, and then you go, cool, I'll bring him in, and then he gets dropped, and Murphy plays the next game. So I'd just avoid them altogether. I don't want any more nightmares in my team. I already had a few. So
yeah, Tim, you agree on that too?
Yeah, definitely. The worst thing you can do in KFC SuperCoach BBL is buy a guy with sort of risky job security, have him score 40 in the first game and then get dropped for the second. So, no, I completely agree with you. I think Chris Jordan comes straight in. Like, he's too good a player not to play as soon as he gets here. But it seems to be like he's only going to play maybe 3 or 4 rounds and then he goes, I think, overseas and plays in the UAE comp. So that's when Naveen will probably come back into the team a bit later in the tournament. So I figure he'll probably get squeezed out, and that's the quick, not the spinner, because Naveen and Naveed, which has been, I know, confusing for a lot of people, which is understandable. Hayden Kerr's a lock, as you guys said, and Sean Abbott's going nowhere. Ben Dawson's has been out of the team the last couple of games, which has been interesting because he's normally just like a walk-up start in that team, but he can't get a game this season and didn't sort of bowl that well early on in the season when he did. And like, as much as I can understand people getting on Steve O'Keefe as a bit of a point of difference, but there's just no guarantee. Like, if you got him this round, I would not be surprised if he only played 2 of the next 3. So he could play this round, maybe miss the first one of the double, and then play the second, and you'd be absolutely snookered from getting on him this week. So I would not be buying Steve O'Keefe this week. I'd be waiting and seeing whether he's in the team for the first game of the double before you jumped on.
Yeah, he's very much a risk, and at his age too, he seems to be getting managed a lot too in between games as well. So I certainly wouldn't. I think it's like 150k anyway. It's ought to play for a player who's not going to be locked in to play both games. So we'll just talk about a couple of players, from these two teams who have obviously got high break evens, and see whether we just think that they're worth trading in this week. I mean, Tim, you already mentioned about Sean Abbott, 128 break even. You think he's worth the risk this week? Glen, would you bring him in this week?
Yeah, I don't hate it at all. So unlike other forms of Supercoach, money's not as big an issue in BBL because it's so quick. I mean, in NRL, we can put players on the bench and we can fatten them up, then sell them on to someone else. It doesn't quite work like that in BBL. So I'll just caution people not to get caught up too much in the revenue side.
Yeah, Dan, what about you?
Yeah, honestly, I think people do look too into that, the high break even, which means it'll just give him that more of a pod option. And I think having someone like Abbott as a pod, it'd be freaking pretty handy to have.
Can I just say on Abbott, so for those who do want to go Abbott, I'll give you a good reason to go him. Is versus Stars, and I don't rate the Stars batting lineup. So there is some common sense actually in going him. I don't hate it at all, actually. The more I look at it, the ground and the fact they're playing the Stars, jumping on him early could actually pay off.
Yeah, so he averages 77, I think, against the Stars as well. So good reason to potentially get him.
Yeah, and he goes well at the SCG. Great record at the SCG too. So, yeah. You got me thinking now because I've got my trades locked in and now I'm not sure.
Don't listen to me. I think you guys are going a lot better than I am.
Don't listen to you. I should have done that yesterday when you said about buying NCN. But anyway, that's all right. I made the choice at the end, so that's the way it goes. So the other one obviously is Nick Maddinson, break even of 129, has looked good. Do we think go to your first stand? Do you think he's an option to look at this week, or are we waiting, or you don't like him at all?
Honestly, we know how volatile batting can be. And I don't see Madison bowling any balls this year either because I know he bowled a few last year. It's risky. It is extremely risky, and it can be high reward. But personally, for me, I'm not going to go that way. I want to be trying to play more consistently this year. But if you're going to go balls out and want to put a risk out there and you're not scared of a risk, I don't mind it, but not for me.
Yeah, what about you, Glenn?
No. So people aren't aware that Madison actually bowled more than M Short last year, and so his role last year was more around what he's priced at the moment. At the moment, he's priced at just a bat, and 170, I think he is for just a bat. It's just too much. Personally, that's my opinion. If he was bowling, he'd be in my side and it'd be a lock. But the fact that he's only a batsman at that price range, I can buy a batsman like Finch or Marsh cheaper and invest elsewhere into the actual bowlers. So no, not for me.
Yeah, Tim, what about yourself?
No, I just completely agree with what I was just saying. Like, you can get James Vince for half the price of Nick Maddinson.
Yep.
He's 77k, and I think his break even's about 45. So there's every chance he gets it this week. So I think Nick Maddison's role is going to improve after about round 8. That's when Hussain and Majib are due to leave, and I think he'll probably play as their second spinner then. Well, they might bring in Kalapotha or bring in Corey Rockachichi, but I don't think they'll play both of those. Like, Maddo will probably play as a second spinner later in the tournament, but the issue is that they're doubles in round 5. So that's when we want him to be bowling, and unfortunately he's not going to be at this stage of the season. So out of those two, you might as well save the 80k and just go for a James Vince instead, and he's got just as much upside as Maddo does.
Yep, fair enough. I agree on that too. I think he's not bowling, and obviously we're not going to know where he bats once Guptill and Sean Marsh come into the team as well. He might slip down the order a bit more as well. It's a good chance he probably won't open. All right, so just for something different next, I want to talk about some low break evens for games. Like obviously these players don't have doubles this round, but maybe looking at something different for a change if you want to go outside the circle and you don't want to bring a star or a Sixers or Renegades player in this week. Um, for me, the top one makes absolutely, sense. If you didn't have him, you should have got him last week, and that's Michael Nisa with a break even of -61. Tim, if you don't have him, surely you get him this week, even though he's not on the double, right?
Yeah, it would have hurt last round not having him. But yeah, Ness is absolutely fine when he's got 208 and he's projected to go up to another 30 or 40k. So just to be able to a must have, and you can pick him as a bat as well, which is a huge bonus as well. I think so. You have the guys with the lower break evens, and I think that's why we're targeting sort of Hayden Kerr because he's -19. But I still can't get over how well Bo Webster started, and I know you guys were sort of picking my brain before we jumped on about sort of potential DPP additions, which are going to be before round 5. And he's one that is probably at the forefront of our thinking there because he's bowled 8 overs in the first 3 games. So he's got a break even of -41, and he might, and I say might, because we sort of don't know if he's going to bowl this round, which might just get him over the line. But he's one, he's still only 105k, and if he's going to be sort of potentially picking up bowl status as well before round 5, I think he could sort of get you to 150 or 160k, and you could look at selling. And then I've really liked his start to the year. I think he's got a great role.
Now I'll go to you, Dan, on this one. Josh Inglis at 142k. Obviously he's gone up, about 60k already, but he's got a break even of -59. Is that someone you'd be looking to jump on this week, or you think it's probably too late for him?
It's too late. Like I said before, I don't think revenue is overly important. I think you're paying 30k less to get Philly pay in this week. I think points per dollar, that's way more important. Plus paying the double game. I'm so angry. I had a choice between him or Gilks to start the season with, and I clearly chose the wrong one. So I'm kicking myself, and I'm annoyed I didn't get him. But he's clearly just gone up a level this year, hasn't he? He's like that. I don't even know what it was, that reverse sweep he did last night, mate. That was like, honestly, that was like playing friend cricket. Like, it was just nothing to him. That's a very, 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 very hard shot to do, and he just did it like it was just a practice run. What a freak!
He reverse swept a Yorker for 6.
Yeah,
like,
that's right.
How do you do? I know it's a junction oval and it's a postage stamp and all that, but how do you? It was an impossible shot. It was an incredible innings.
Yeah,
so good.
As soon as he went to play the stride, I've gone to myself, there's no way he's going to hit this. He's either going to get LBW or it's going to bowl him. And next minute he goes for 6. I'm just like, how did he do that? That was just unbelievable. No. Like, some of the shots that these players come out with these days is just next to nothing. Like, it's just crazy. And even some of the fielding that we've seen as well this BBL, like some of the stops that bloody Nick and Hobson did on that boundary yesterday was just unbelievable. Like, just so athletic, honestly. Just, yeah.
Can I just be devil's advocate on the choices that you've mentioned? Yep. So for Nisa, I own Nisa already, so I'll just let people know that. But I wouldn't personally be buying him this round. Or even Webster for that matter. But that's the way I play. So I'm always looking at what they can do further ahead. Someone like Webster's a little different. If he was batting and bowling and points per dollar, he makes sense. But I think, and Nisa as well, I guess, but I'd be looking at getting Renegades and Sixers and trying to build for those jewels coming forward. So it's just the other side of the argument for those that,
Well, Glenn, I was going to pass to you on the last one I've got on my list and see what you think. And that's Mr. Arms Everywhere himself, Paddy Dooley, the windmill man. Break even at -46. Mate, I tell you what, I watched him in that game the other day, and he's very hard to pick. If you haven't picked him before, like, he's something different. Is he someone that you'd look at buying this week? Like, is it not out of their options?
Someone I looked at buying. So yesterday I was going to buy either Hussain, Naveed, Webster, or Dooley, and I ended up doing none of them. I ended up saving the boost. But yeah, I like Dooley a lot. Again, based on him not having a buy until duel until round 8. I don't know if I'll be doing it, but I can see reasoning for it. Anyone that bats and bowls, you got to understand. Someone who's just a bat in a double game, they'll get to bat twice. Someone that bats and bowls, they're literally doing the same thing anyway, so they get 2 opportunities anyway. So sometimes an all-rounder can be better than a just bat. And a duel coming up.
Yep.
Yeah, I like Dooley, mate. Yes.
All right. So next we'll throw over to you, Tim. We just want to discuss these dual position options, obviously, for next round. I mean, obviously, we already mentioned about Hussein and Webster. Is there anyone else that is possibly looking at getting that dual position come into next round?
Yeah, I think the five that we highlighted, it's probably hard because there's, as opposed to sort of NRL, and I know that the boys have sort of stripped back a lot of the DPP options for next year so they can add to them throughout the season, which I think makes sense. And AFL, we're different because a lot of our positions are decided by champion data as opposed to them sort of being subjectively added throughout the season. But BBL is the same as NRL in that token. And we've landed, like, there's a lot of all-rounders already. There's a lot of bat bowlers, a lot of wicket-keeper bats already. So they're probably, I don't think there's going to be too many surprises this early in the season. Like Webb's is a big one. Might need to bowl next round, though, like in round 4 to potentially get it over the line. Hussein, obviously, people out there that are hoping that he can pick up bat status as well. But he's batted in the first 3 games. It might just be how much he bats in round 4 again. Outside those two guys, you're probably looking at someone like Ross Whiteley, who's not all that popular for KFC Supercoach, but he's bowled now in 2 games. I think he bowled better than James Bazley when he bowled in the second game in the double as well. Like, if I was Brisbane Heat, I'd be dropping Bazley and just bowling Ross Whiteley because he looks like a pretty handy option with the sort of point of difference that he offers with the left armers. I think the other two that we highlighted, well, Jason Sanger was one, but he probably needed to bowl a bit more before he got injured, and not really all that relevant anyway, unfortunately, because we don't know when we'll see him again. And then Afton Turner didn't bowl yesterday, which was kind of understandable. So they were sort of 5 that were probably the forefront of our thinking. But yeah, the big two are going to be sort of Hussein and Webster, and whether those two end up with DPP status. So I think it's probably more likely than unlikely at this stage, but we need to see sort of what happens in round 4 before we make that final call.
Yeah. We might just talk about the Heat quickly because I think that their bowling options, I'm not sure about I don't know if you guys agree with Pearson's bowling options of who he bowled when last night. I thought that was a bit unordinary. Like Baisley bowling the last over, and then Kuhneman looked the better of the spinners out of him and Swepson, and still only bowled 2 overs, and Swepson bowled 4, including 1 in the surge. We'll go to you, Glenn. What do you think? There were some very odd bowling selections there last night at, vital times in the match.
Yeah, one of the catch-22s is having a side like Brisbane's is that problem. They've got a lot of depth. They've got a lot of like-for-like kind of players that bat and bowl. The Basleys and Nieces, the Bartletts and Wildermuths, that kind of thing. Yeah, I think Pearson's a new captain, isn't he? Oh, he captained last year, didn't he?
Yeah, he's been captain for a while.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't pay attention, to be 100% honest with you, in the bowling order. But I quite often question tactics. But I mean, isn't that one of the beauties of sport? What I do is something different to what someone else would do. We all have our own perspectives, I guess, on what we think's right or wrong. I'm a firm believer in bowling pace up front. I like pace up front. So, I like seeing Dorf bowling 3 out. There's a few others that do that. I kind of think Thornton did that a similar. It seems to work for sides if they bowl out and they see it's turning in or out. But yeah, I can't really comment on the order. I didn't really see it, to be honest, Roscoe.
Yeah. What about you, Dan? Did you catch much of the game yesterday?
Yeah. So what I noticed is when Nisa bowled that first over, it was like he was bowling against a bunch of 7-year-olds, and that's nothing against the batters. That was just how he made them look. And I noticed that Adelaide started off with, so the spinner was short. And I find that when that ball, as a medium pacer myself, and I like to get the ball to move in both directions, I hate it when the spinners take up the first few overs. It really screws up that, scuts the ball up the wrong side. But as you can see, it works really, really well for Nisa and even Steckity. The ball was moving like on a dime for him. Yeah. So, but they started off really well. But then, like you said, Swepson, I think he took I guess his namesake got the job for more overs than Kuhneman, even though I thought Kuhneman was a better bowler. I think Pearson had a few, not only captaincy issues last night, but he wasn't very good with the gloves either. Did you notice? He was having a bit of a rough one. He's taking the stumps out, not getting the right position. I think he had a bit of a rough night himself. So, but I think he's a professional. We'll get back to it, and I think you'll see a different team next week as well, next game.
Yeah, I've been with Swepson, and I'm sure that you guys will agree that saw the game that he was bowling far too short, and he was bowling
Yeah,
short
thank
outside
you.
off stump, and he's just dragging it on. And as I said, I think Kuhneman should have been the one who bowled more overs. But yeah. All right, Tim. Well, over to you now. So, what do you think next? Obviously, with the Heat, I think we all agree that Baisley probably should drop out of the team for the next game. Do you think McSweeney or Josh Brown comes into that side to bolster that batting line up a bit more?
Yeah, that's a good question. I know that what they've got the sort of Aussie guys that aren't too far away now will become a factor in KFC Supercoach as well. So I don't know. If I was them, I'm thinking about it last night. I'd almost put an extra bat in. Like I'd have Sam Heaslett in that team at 4 or 5 just for that extra batting option. I know he hasn't. A bit like Max Bryant, sort of he has that sort of good knock every, 18 months or so that seems to keep him in the team, but he hasn't been able to get a go yet in BBL 12. So I'd be throwing Heaslett in, maybe dropping an extra bowler and then using Ross Whiteley a bit more. And I do just wonder, like on the tactics that Brisbane Heat used in that game in round 3, whether the rain affected things as well, because it was absolutely belting down towards the end. Like you could see when Ross Whiteley came on the bowl, like his hair was absolutely soaked. It was all hanging off his face. So they did pretty well to stay out there in the end, I think. And I wonder whether, I know Kuhneman maybe said, like, I'm struggling to grip the ball or something, because we know it's not easy for a spinner sort of when the ball gets quite wet. So I think Mitch Swepson did quite well to bowl his 4 overs. But I was wondering whether watching that was sort of half a factor in 2 of the overs that would usually go to Kuhneman being taken by Ross Whiteley instead.
Well, we saw the same. Glenn, we saw the same approach with the Sixers game yesterday when it was rain affected, and they opted to run with going for Todd Murphy being the finger spinner over Naveed, who's obviously isn't a finger spinner because of the reason of being able to grip the ball better, and that was what Moses said at the toss. That was purely the reason why Murphy was picked. So I guess they obviously do these things for reasons. Glenn?
I was just going to say, I agree. I think that they could go someone less Swepson or Kuhneman, and then they've got Renshaw and Whiteley to make up them other 4. And I mean, Renshaw can do the job. I mean, I wouldn't say better than Swepson, but, arguably is good enough to throw 2 overs down and Whiteley throw the other 2 and bring in another bat. I do agree with you, Tim. They need another bat. I think Heslett would be, personally, I'd have Brown instead of Bryant, and Heslett would be in there as well. I like both of them, to be honest.
Yeah. I'd like to see McSweeney come in just for the form he's in, and he's also another option to bowlers that can throw a few overs over as well. But he's a bit of a spinner too, but you probably don't need another spinner. So, yeah.
McSweeney signed with them, didn't he?
Yes. He signed as a local replacement, I think it was. Is that right, Tim? I'm pretty sure it was, wasn't it?
Yeah, he's one of their local replacements for the test guys, so can still play for the next couple of rounds. But as you guys, he was just about the form player in any state really before he got signed up. So maybe surprised we haven't seen him. Hopefully he does get a crack in the next few rounds to press his claims anyway.
Is there anything else that you want to go over, Glenn, before we go through some other captaincy options and stuff for this round?
I think we should talk about VCC options. That's pretty much all I can think of.
All right. While you're there, Glenn, who are you going for VC and C this week?
Well, I'm debating on the VC. It's between Short or Shadab. So I can go Shadab Khan, which gets me in the first game, or I can go Short. But then I'd have to bring in an MPR to do that because I've only got a Connolly, so I'd have to sell. But my captain option at the moment is I forgot who's playing last.
The Heat are playing Thunder last.
Yeah, that's right. So I've got Sams as my captain, and I've got Short as my VC at the moment. But there's a world where I might go Shadab because I can do Shadab easier and then into Short.
Oh, I've got your trade options for this week. If you want to share them out.
Yeah, okay. So at the moment, I've bought in Majib, Hussain, and Philippe, but I'm revisiting in that. I might turn Philippe to Kerr and just play Inglis because Inglis has been going fine, and I think I'll just get Philippe next round.
All right. Who are you selling to get these 3 in?
So I've sold Ty. I sold Renshaw. I can't remember who the other one was, mate. It was someone in my batting. I actually can't remember.
That's right. What about you, Dan? VC and C in your trades?
Yeah, so at the moment I got the VC on one of my trades. And that's Hussain. I'm looking at Hussain to go VC there. If he gets a few bowls and that's all right as well, could be pretty handy little VC option there. And then my captain at the moment is Matt Short. I think he's a safe option at the moment, especially. I'm a bit concerned though, because I'm pretty sure they're playing. Yeah, they're playing at Perth, and they often use the fast bowlers a bit more there. So he might not get as many overs. So I might have to change that and see what I can do there. But yeah, I've got plenty of options. The other option would be I've still got Rashid there as well, and being at Perth, I've also got I've got Faf in my team as well, who's done. Even though he didn't score the best in that first week, he's looked convincing with the bat. And that's why I had the option of selling him after that first week. And I was like, you know what? I like the look of him still. And I'm glad I held him. And I reckon he's going to be a great keeper all the way through the season. So that's the other option. I was potentially going to even captain the Faf.
He'd be a bit of a pod too, wouldn't he?
He's about 9.8% ownership, I think, at the moment.
Still a pod. Yeah, definitely a pod.
So I traded this week. I brought in the same players as what Glen just said. Actually, I got in Mujib, Hossein, and I also brought in Philippe. And I'm thinking about boosting up and also going Abbott as well, just to get that little head start on the next week there. But I'm not sure if it's really worth it. But I think it'd be good to have that extra point of difference there as well.
Yep. All right. What about you, Tim?
Still tossing up, if I'm being honest. I know we're not that far from the round starting as we record this, but yeah, I've only got one boost still up my sleeve. I've gone pretty hard at the first couple of rounds trying to improve my rank. And just as you guys were talking about the break-evens, I was scanning through some of the players and I didn't realise Shadab Khan, who I still don't have, his break-evens about 5 for this round. So I might try and get him in so I can VC him, and then it'll just be Renegades and sixes around him. Out of those, I think Hayden Kerr's the best buy out of the sixes and Renegades for this round because his price is probably going to go up sort of another 10 or 15K, and then Chris Jordan will probably be the point of difference if he does end up being named in the sixes squad for when they play in round 4. So I'd be keeping a close eye on that one to see if he's named for that game against the Stars, which we should know. Well, probably Christmas Day, I guess. We'll see the squad for the first time at some point.
Yep. Well, for myself, my VC, I'm going to throw in Hussein, and my captain will either be Matty Short or Michael Nisa as a bit of a pod captaincy choice. Just for the way he's been going. I mean, as we said earlier, Dan, watching the game last night, looking like he was bowling to under sevens. Chris Lynn had absolutely no idea against him when he came out on strike. Like he should have had him out and just kept beating the bat ball after ball. That 9-ball over that he bowled was probably one of the best overs I've seen in BBL. Like a couple of wides and then a wicket or whatever it is, a wicket or two that he got, and he's just unbelievable. Just the way he moves that ball, he's just.
Yeah. Well, personally, as a swing bowler myself, like I play with the red ball and even the orange ball for 2020 as well. And also it takes a while when the ball is moving that much. It takes a while to get your line in length. I've often bowled a few wides, so I would go, holy crap, it's moving way more than I thought. And then after a while, you start realizing, if I bowl an in-swinger, for example, I'm aiming at first slip with the way my arm goes, so it moves in. I'm aiming at third slip now because it's swinging so much. That's why he's trying to make these adjustments as he's going along. So, yeah, best 9-ball over I've ever seen in BBL.
Yeah. Oh, so for me, my trades are Renshaw out, Ty out, and also the last one will either be, I'm not sure yet on Daniel Sams or Steckity out. I'm thinking Sams at this stage because he's got a pretty high break even. And my trade-ins are Rogers, Kerr, and also Philippi for me. So they're my trades for this week. We'll just touch quickly. We spoke about Rashid earlier. Do you guys, has everyone still got him or sold him?
I've got him still.
Are you tempted to sell him given that they've got a buy next round and he leaves soon?
Yeah, I am. So he's someone I have looked at selling, but in a single round, I just don't think you want to sell players like Khan or Sams. I just think that they're players that can, in a single round where you can get 250, 300 scores, you want every point you can get, and Rashid and Sams are two that I mean, I'd sell Khan before I'd sell Sams personally. I almost faded Khan, as you know, at the start of the comp for Thornton, and I still regret not doing it.
I had a look at last year's Rashid Khan as well. So round 1 he got 43 points. Round 2 he got 90 in a double gamer, so 45 each game. And then he comes out and busts out 103 in the next game. Rashid does this. I will sell him when I have to, but I'm not missing out on that 100 when he gets a 4-5 in his ball. So I'll sell him when I have to, but at this stage I'm going to keep on.
The person that wins SuperCoach will fade one of the big names. Like It's just getting it right. You know, if you can fade a big player and reverse pod and get someone that's getting the points, it can really elevate you.
Yeah, well, I sold Rashid last week, and after seeing the game yesterday, I was pretty happy with it. But I know what he's capable of, and knowing my luck, he'll pull out 100 and something in this game, and probably his break even I think is 92, and he's well capable of smashing that just by getting a couple of wickets. So, have you still got him, Tim?
Unfortunately, yeah, I captained him last round, which was an absolute disaster.
That's right. Yeah.
I'll probably trade him this round though, because unless I sort of do my round 4 or 5 planning and think I'm going to maybe keep Rashid that round and not trading Cooper Connolly, and then I could keep Rashid for his bye, use him as my vice captain, or use him as my vice captaincy loop, and then sort of potentially carry him for a couple of rounds as a pod, because I think most people will have traded him out by that point. So that's something that's still in my thinking, but yeah, more than likely to move him on this round to try and get. He's about the same price as Hayden Kerr, so pretty much a straight swap would make sense ahead of round 4.
I don't know if anyone owns him, and I know you spoke about him before, Glenn, and at 235k and a break even of I think about 160 odd. If you had a hidden Henry Thornton with a buy coming up next round, would you be selling him this week to bank some cash up, or would you be hanging on to him?
Yeah, I would, but geez, he's in some nice touch. But I mean, when a player gets that sort of money, I usually sell them just based on points per dollar. I can get someone cheaper for 130, and then I've still got nearly 100k to play with. Like, it just makes more sense to me.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you guys agree. I think he's a sell too, and I think get rid of him, bring him back a bit cheaper for their next double, which I think's in round 8 or round 9. I think it's their next double. So, yeah, would you be selling Dan and Tim?
Yeah, I'd look at like a double game, or like one player you could look at is someone we haven't really spoken too much about it, and we know what his role is. That's Kerr. I could look at bringing in Kerr this week for him, save a bit of money there, and have a guy that's playing 2 games next week and playing pretty solid for a single game as well. So, and then bank some cash.
The percentage just don't trade Rashid, but the way that this season's gone for me, if I trade him, he'll probably score 150. So I'm pretty reluctant, because I moved on Matt Short 2 weeks ago, and that's been an absolute disaster, 2 rounds ago, and that's been an absolute disaster. He's scored about 3,000 points since then. So trading out these big guns obviously can backfire pretty quickly on you. But yeah, the percentage play is definitely to trade Rashid heading into round 4.
All right. Well, I think that's about it for today's podcast. Glenn, did you have anything else you want to say quickly before we wrap up?
No questions that I saw posted. You didn't see any, did you? Posted?
No, I didn't see anything. No. What about you, Dan? Anything else?
No, all good, guys. I'm hoping to have a much better round this week, and yeah, move forward.
I just want to say a huge thank you to Tim for coming on to the podcast today. We appreciate your time. We know you're a busy man and you're working away there today. So we thank you for your time. And also, Dan and Glenn, thanks for your time again today. And we just want to, on behalf of everyone on the Tragic page, wish everyone a Merry Christmas and have a great day tomorrow with your family. And stay safe and have a good one.
Yeah, Merry Christmas, boys.
Merry Christmas.
Okay.
So you want to be a champion?
Men plus the keeper around the batsman.
There we go. Fleming took the last one. Merv Hughes before him.
That's a hat-trick to Shane Warne, a great moment in his career. What a catch by David Boot. You won't see many better catches at forward short leg than that one. The Aussies are all around, and have a look at that.